Today we are going to see the external features of spinal cord. As you all know, spinal cord is the lower elongated portion of the central nervous system. We can also say that it is the continuation or the direct continuation of the medulla oblongata. If we see a cut section, you can see that it is cylindrical in shape, slightly flattened anteroposteriorly. Length of the spinal cord is 45 centimeters in case of males and 42 centimeters in case of females. This is a very frequently asked question, that what is the length of spinal cord, and as soon as you say that the length of spinal cord is 45 centimeters, the immediate next question would be what other structures in our body are of 45 centimeters in length. And I think that till now you are well aware about those structures in our body which are 45 centimeters in length. So, first is spinal cord, next is thoracic duct, vas deferens, femur and sartorius. Spinal cord extends from the upper border of the posterior arch of first cervical vertebra to the lower border of L1, that is the first lumbar vertebra in case of adults. Up to the third month of intrauterine life, the spinal cord extends throughout the entire length of the vertebral canal. But what happens later on, the growth of the vertebral column, it becomes much more faster than the spinal cord, and the terminal end of the spinal cord gradually shifts to a higher level. So, at the time of the birth, the spinal cord ends at the level of third lumbar vertebra, whereas in case of adults, it terminates at the level of lower border of L1, or we can say intervertebral disc between L1 and L2. The lowermost tapering extremity of the spinal cord, this is known as conus medullaris. From the apex of the conus medullaris, there continues a thin thread like filament which is called filum terminale. Spinal cord is surrounded by protective membranes from outside to inside. They are dura mater, arachnoid mater and pia mater. If you see this specimen, here this is the toughest layer, right? You can see this membrane. This is actually dura mater as well as arachnoid mater, because we are not able to separate those in this specimen, and the innermost layer which you can see here on the organ which is shining, that is your pia mater, which is closely invests the substance of the spinal cord, as you have seen in the abdominal organs, where we are not able to separate the visceral peritoneum from spleen or kidney or from any other abdominal organs. Dura mater and arachnoid mater, it extends up to second sacral vertebra, up to S2 vertebra. In this diagram, you can see that this green colored layer is outermost dura mater, then inside is the arachnoid mater, and innermost, which is closely investing the substance of the spinal cord, this is your pia mater. What do you note here, that this is the vertebral canal, right? So, between the dura mater and the vertebral canal, there is a space which is known as the epidural space. Now, this epidural space is not present in case of the cranial cavity, that is brain. Epidural space that is present in case of spinal meninges, and it contains loose areolar tissue, semi-liquid fat and internal vertebral venous plexus. Now, this is very important to know. Contents of epidural space. The space between the dura mater and the arachnoid mater, that is known as the subdural space, and it contains a capillary layer of fluid. Between the arachnoid mater and the pia mater, there is a subarachnoid space. Subarachnoid space is filled up with cerebrospinal fluid. Above it is continuous with the subarachnoid space around the brain. But what happens distal to the termination of the spinal cord, that is the conus medullaris, here the subarachnoid space becomes much roomier as compared to the rest of the subarachnoid space, and it forms a lumbar cistern. Collection of the cerebrospinal fluid from the disc between L3 and L4 is known as lumbar puncture, where the CSF is collected from the lumbar cistern. Next, the differences between the spinal and the cranial dura are very important and they are very frequently asked. In the spinal dura, there is only a single layer, which is meningeal layer, and so there is a formation of epidural space between the vertebral canal and the spinal dura. Whereas in the cranial dura, it consists of double layer, inner meningeal and outer endosteal. Second difference, spinal dura is not forming any folds, whereas we have several folds like falx cerebri, falx cerebelli, tentorium cerebelli and diaphragma cellae in cranial dura. And as the spinal dura is consisting of only a meningeal layer, there is a presence of epidural space, whereas it is absent in cranial dura. Two more modifications of the pia mater are subarachnoid septum and linea splendens. Linea splendens is present on this ventral surface, whereas the subarachnoid septum is present on the dorsal surface. Here what happens in the anterior median fissure, the pia it gives off a septum which is present in this fissure. Where this process is given off, the pia mater presents a thickening which runs into the entire anterior median fissure is known as linea splendens. This is the dorsal surface of the spinal cord. So, subarachnoid septum, it is a mid-sagittal fenestrated pial septum which connects this dorsal surface of the spinal cord with the arachnoid mater. This diagram is showing the cross section of the spinal cord. This is the ventral surface, this is the dorsal surface. On the ventral surface, in the midline, there is one anterior median fissure which is deep. It extends along the entire length of the spinal cord and it accommodates the anterior spinal artery. On the anterior surface or the ventral surface, there are also two anterolateral sulcus. On the dorsal surface, in the midline, there is a posterior median sulcus. On the two sides, posterior intermediate sulcus, and still laterally on both the sides, posterolateral sulcus. This anterior median fissure and the posterior lateral sulcus, that is dividing the entire half of the spinal cord into two symmetrical parts. Each half is further subdivided by the presence of posterolateral sulcus and anterolateral sulcus into posterior, lateral and anterior regions. Through the anterolateral sulcus emerges the ventral root fibers and through the posterolateral sulcus enters the dorsal root fibers of the spinal nerve. This together will form the spinal nerve. This is a model of the spinal cord which helps us to understand the emergence of the spinal nerves as well as the spinal segment. Now, there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves which emerges from the side of the spinal cord. Out of this, 8 are cervical, 12 are thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral and 1 coccygeal nerve. Now, we need to understand how the nerves they leave the vertebral canal. This is your first cervical vertebra and this is the first cervical nerve. So, what do you see here that the first cervical nerve it emerges above the vertebra. So, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 and 7. So, up to 7 cervical vertebra what is happening this upper 7 cervical nerve that is emerging above. But if you see here this is in relation to the 7 cervical vertebra this is the 8 cervical nerve. Then onwards this is the first thoracic vertebra and the first thoracic nerve emerges below the corresponding vertebra. So, below that all the nerves they are passing below the corresponding vertebra. Like the vertebral column, the spinal cord is also segmented, though these segments are not visible externally. The part of the spinal cord to which a single pair of spinal nerve is attached is known as a spinal segment. So in this model we can understand very nicely that this is showing the spinal nerves, emergence of the spinal nerves, and on one side we can see the vertebral column. So this much part is one spinal segment. In this specimen we can see this in the midline, this is the ventral surface. So this is the anterior median fissure in which we can also see the anterior spinal artery. Lateral to it, where you can see this attachment of the rootlets, this becomes your anterolateral sulcus, and we are also able to see the emergence of this ventral rootlets. Spinal cord is roughly cylindrical in shape. However, what happens opposite to the attachment of the nerve roots which forms the brachial plexus and the lumbosacral plexus, the spinal cord presents definite fusiform swellings. If you can appreciate here, the spinal cord is somewhat enlarged in this much area, which is your cervical enlargement. These enlargements are produced due to the presence of a large number of large motor neurons, so as to supply the musculature of the upper and lower limbs and associated girdles. Just like this enlargement in the cervical region, there is also one enlargement in the lumbar region, but I don't think you might be able to appreciate in this specimen, but there is also one lumbar enlargement. Length of the spinal cord and length of the vertebral column is not same. Now all the spinal nerves has to emerge from their respective intervertebral foramina. So as the cord is shorter than the vertebral column, length and obliquity of the spinal nerve roots, they increases progressively from above downwards. So if you see here the angulation and if you see here the angulation, it is different. Here the angulation is much more because the spinal cord is ending at the level of the lower border of L1. So all the nerves below, they will take a much longer course so as to arise out of their respective intervertebral foramina. As a result, what happens, the nerve roots of the lumbar except L1, that is starting from L2, sacral, coccygeal, caudal part of the spinal cord, that is conus medullaris, and the filum terminale, this takes more or less a vertical course and form a bunch of nerve fibers around the filum terminale. So you can see that this is the filum terminale and this all are the bunch of the nerves. This is known as cauda equina because of the fancied resemblance to the tail of a horse. So cauda equina consists of the roots of the lower 4 pairs of the lumbar, 5 pairs of sacral and 1 pair of coccygeal nerve along with the filum terminale. So that completes the demonstration of the spinal cord. I don't know how much you would be able to understand in the video, but definitely we can summarize the whole video. In the practical exam, you need to identify the specimen which is of spinal cord and then you need to put it in the anatomical position. To put it in the anatomical position, you need to see the anterior median fissure on the ventral surface, posterior median sulcus on the dorsal surface. In the lower end, you can see a bunch of the nerve fibers which is the cauda equina, and the opposite end will become the upper end. This is a list of the frequently asked questions specifically in the practical exam. You can note it down or take a screenshot of the same. Thank you.